So hello and welcome to another episode of Cúilín Media Club Final Preview this weekend, obviously with the senior finals taking place. It is the last week of club action. It's a long time ago, or just a short time ago, that we used to stop the bus method in terms of discussing all the games, but we're now down to the final two games of the club championship with Ballygunner Loughrea, Dingle and St. Brigids all vying for glory this weekend in Croke Park. So I'll be joined by Aaron Prendegrast to discuss this weekend's games. We will be joined in a little while by Liam White as well. Seamus is not going to be with us again this evening, make it a bit of a habit, I suppose, but we will rock on. I suppose, Aaron, coming to the end of the club season, obviously there's college competitions there, the league is just about to start as well, the week after as well, so it seems like literally yesterday that we only started talking about stop the bus and talk about our own counties and our own county championships and stuff like that, then into the winter conditions for the club finals and stuff like that. But now we're into the final two games of the club season.
Yeah, it's crazy, really. Like, it'll probably be our last club preview of the year, unless maybe there's replays or anything like that, and then maybe we will have more to discuss. But probably from next week onwards, especially with intercounty football, hurling, ladies football, obviously camogie a little bit later. Everything will obviously take center stage. So it's crazy, really. It's mad how quickly it kind of comes around. Like, the league only a little bit more than a week away, which is kind of crazy. I'm obviously hugely looking forward to it. But for the games this weekend, there's two absolute crackers, really. Ballygunner Loughrea, obviously so much on the line there. Loughrea looking to win a first ever All Ireland. Ballygunner looking to win their first since 22. And with Dingle and Brigids, it's kind of similar. Like, Dingle have never won at Brigids back in 2013. So really looking forward to getting into those games, and I suppose plenty of other talking points as well.
Exactly. So, and I suppose we will talk about the Secrets Cup later on. There were some interesting results in round 2 as well, including round 2A, where 4 colleges progressed straight through to the quarterfinals as well. We will discuss that in just a while as well. But we will start off. Peter has led the charge, as usual, with the comments for this show. He's saying, hey lads, great to see the lineup for this year's Laker Gale announced. Delighted to see Cyril Farrell featured. He was on co-coms for Galway Offaly last weekend and a regular analyst on Galway Bay FM. And I suppose he was a brilliant analyst for RT as well. I do miss Cyril Farrell and Jordan Nan, and obviously it's Moss McKay, he's a Cork man as well. That trio was absolutely excellent in the hurling, I will say. Even though Dalo, don't know Cusack, Liam Sheedy, there aren't bad pundits at all, but you can't beat the OGs, you really can't. He joined Smaller Fish last year for the inter-county season. He did, Peter, and he was a brilliant guest, I'd imagine, on Colin Parkinson's show. And Rachel from Off the Ball, that's Rachel Sheehan, of course, proud East Cork woman there from the Carratool Killa direction, did great interviews and Laker Gale launch event. Yeah, I saw her interview with Louise Niver-Hurtig, actually, absolutely excellent interview. And to be fair, Rachel is a very good I would say broadcaster with Off the Ball as well, and she's definitely making strides. But just to mention Laker Gale, Aaron, there was a new story this week. TG Carr have announced the new series of Laker Gale and their legends that have been included in this series for 2026. So Conor McManus, obviously legend for Monaghan football, is the first guest there. Obviously, as Peter mentioned there, Cyril Farrell, a hurling legend in Galway hurling. And to be honest, I have met Cyril Farrell at the door of a restaurant, I think it was, in Galway, and he seems a sound guy anyway. So absolutely delighted he gets his day out in the sun there. Grace Walsh, Kilkenny Camogie, Marty Clark of Down Football, Padraig Horn of Offaly Hurling, Neil McManus of Antrim Hurling, obviously, as I mentioned there with Rachel Sheehan doing the interview, Louise Niver-Hurtig, obviously Kerry, LGFA legend, and Kevin McMenamin of Dublin, who I think Aaron would have a few opinions on as well. It's a good list, Aaron, very strong list, and to be honest, you can't expect more really from Laker Gale. What a show it is, and some good legends on show in the next few weeks, and the series starts on Thursday, January 22nd, so something to look forward to during the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a cracking list, to be honest with you. I don't really know if they could have picked a better list. Obviously you can't just go out and pick, the best players. Obviously it's not as easy as that. So, but even with that, you've got players there who have a lot of stories and a lot of kind of things to tell. Obviously the Kevin McManaman one will be, probably be tuning into. I'll probably tune into them all, but I'll tune into that one as quickly as anything. I think Kevin McManaman, like as a Dublin fan, he probably gave me maybe my 2 best moments as a Dublin fan, maybe 3, I would say. Obviously the goal versus Kerry. I mean, you can't ever there's no better feeling. Obviously, Cluxton's point about 10 minutes later or whatever it was probably beats it because it won it. But the goal from McManaman, was what changed it all. Like Dublin were 4 points down at that stage, and with the momentum of the hill. And I remember being there at that game on Hill 16. It's still all a blur when that goal went in. Like I think I maybe fell down like 3 rows or something of that nature. Like it probably wasn't actually the most healthy or most safe kind of moment. But it was just absolute carnage. And the goal as well versus Kerry, I think a few years later in 2013, when he kind of came off the bench in that kind of crazy game. But yeah, look, Conor McManus will be a great one as well. I think Monaghan fans will really enjoy that one. Neil McManus as well, obviously a Antrim sort of hurling legend and stalwart and everything else. Of course, Louise Mahertig after what she's done with Kerry, Grace Walsh, as you said before as well. So there's some absolute star-studded legends there. And I think without question we'll be really looking forward to watching them when they come around in next week.
Yeah, it should be an excellent show in terms of Laochra Gael. Peter has a very interesting question actually to ask the both of us, and if Liam does join in time, he might answer this himself as well. Lads, if you were to nominate or any lake for Laochra Gael who hasn't featured yet, who would you go for? He said he'd go for Johnny Doyle. Absolutely excellent choice, I think. For me personally, as a Cork fan, probably in terms of supporting footballers for years, I think Donegal O'Connor. I think he was superb in 2010. One of the standouts, I would say, in the forward line for Cork as well. To be fair, Cork have had some good shows in the past few years, especially Breed Stack last year. I think Noel O'Leary a couple of years ago was an excellent Laochra Gael as well. But for me, I'd go Donegal O'Connor. I just think he was an absolute legend in a Cork football jersey. For yourself, Aaron, obviously Kevin McManaman, you can't choose now. Would you choose Cluxton?
Yeah, I was thinking Cluxton, to be fair, but I don't know if it would ever happen, to be honest. He just never really does interviews. I feel like if he was to do something, though, he might do Laochra Gael, because he is, he kind of does have his set beliefs and everything else, and I feel like he would be a man that would probably do something like that, but not do anything else. Do you know what I mean? Maybe like a Brian Fenton, and maybe you're kind of hoping Brian Fenton can return to Dublin in a couple of years, but look, he'd obviously be one from a Dublin perspective that you'd be looking towards. I think those would be the main ones that you'd kind of edge towards it. Did Bernard Brogan get one? I don't know if he did.
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I think Alan did. Yeah,
Alan did. If Bernard Brogan hasn't got one, it's kind of a travesty, because what a footballer he was.
Yeah, no, I know he does have he's been in a lot of documentaries and everything else, so he might have had one maybe. Fento does seem to be up for maybe a few media gigs, all right. But yeah, if I had to choose, I'd probably go Cluxton or Fenton.
Yeah, I'd probably, that would be absolutely excellent shows, in fairness, for Laochra Gael. But it is an excellent series. It is worth mentioning as well. Peter saying Bernard hasn't featured, I think. What a show that would be if Bernard Brogan was selected there. He wrote a great book. He absolutely did, no doubt about it. That is the Laochra Gael series all looked at as well. Dar Wilson is saying here, just a shout out up the Pierces Go Club from Armagh. It's a Gaelic team, so well done for mentioning Dar. And there is the Pierces mentioned on the show. Hello, my name is James. Brilliant name, by the way. Is saying yes, he's going to Crow Park on Sunday, lads. I'm not, obviously. I have to go to awards night on Saturday evening, the West Cork Sports Star Awards. Definitely looking forward to that night, obviously. A great night involved there, and I'm definitely looking forward to that in the Celtic Cross Hotel this Saturday. Are you going to the doubleheader, Aaron, on Sunday?
Probably not, to be honest with you. I could go. I have nothing else on, but it's mainly just money, to be honest. I'm trying to save the cash and everything else, especially for the opening round of the league. I was saying to Matthew there, I did get the season ticket for Dublin this year, but I think it's mainly just for a few points before and everything else. So trying to, with it being January and everything else, it's a bit of a slog. So I'll probably watch them at home.
Yeah, probably the smart move, to be fair, especially with the weather right now and the league starting next week. We need our energy conserved for that. But we will get into the games now and we'll talk about college competitions later on. And of course, what pre-season finals there are in store. We'll start off chronologically and we'll start off with the hurling final. This is on at 1:30 p.m. in Croke Park this Sunday. It's between Loughrea, who haven't won the All-Ireland ever. They got to the final in 2007 but lost that, obviously, against Ballygunner, who are hoping to win their second All-Ireland title, their first since 2022. And I suppose Ballygunner are going into this as massive favourites, Aaron, and considering Cúilín's red card as of right now, recording, hasn't been rescinded as of yet, that is another big advantage to Ballygunner. You would imagine Ballygunner are massive favourites going into this, but only one Waterford club has ever won the Senior All-Ireland. Obviously, that was Ballygunner in 2022. That was the only time a Waterford club ever won the competition. So you never know with these games, but would you argue Ballygunner are going to this as massive favourites?
Yeah, I think so. Like whether they're like, I don't know what you would say the gap is, or you know, between the two teams. Like, you don't want to be disrespectful to Loughrea, and you know, stranger things have happened. I don't think it would be an enormous shock or anything like that if Loughrea won. We've probably seen bigger shocks in the history of hurling and Gaelic games and everything else. So it's not completely impossible, but it does feel like, yeah, like I think with Dingle and Brigids, we'll get onto that later. I think that game's a lot more sort of closer to call, whereas this one feels very, very tough, or this one feels a lot more kind of, you know, set in stone in terms of Ballygunner being superior favourites. Like, they definitely have had the tougher route to the final. There's no question about that in terms of the teams they've had to play in the Piershig Stars, St. Martin's as well, and coming through Waterford. So it has been a lot tougher for Ballygunner in regards to that. They have the experience of being here in this game a couple of years ago, which I know, as you said, Loughrea played back in 2007. None of the players are obviously going to be involved that were involved that day. Maybe some people in the backroom team will be, but generally speaking, it is going to be completely brand new experience from a Loughrea perspective. And yeah, you just look at the quality, really, like in terms of Ballygunner, from Desi Hutchinson, as we've mentioned previously, Pádraig Matney, Harry Ruddle's been in phenomenal form this season as well. Peter Hogan's the man who kind of keeps it all ticking as well, kind of in behind. So yeah, it just feels like Ballygunner are going to be far too strong, as you mentioned. Now, Cúilín, from looking at recent news reports, it's not confirmed 100%. that he's not going to be there, but I think at this stage, you know, like on Thursday, you know, will it get overturned at this stage? Probably not, which is harsh. There's no question about that. You know, so it's going to be tough from a Loughrea perspective, especially when you do look at the quality of Ballygunner.
Exactly. So, and obviously I have given my thoughts on the record. I thought it was extremely harsh, and obviously Johnny Murphy wants to make it about himself again, but this is about Loughrea and Ballygunner. We will edge away from that, obviously. Peter's saying without Cúilín, it could be a crucial grain of rice towards Ballygunner. Ballygunner are such a drilled, well-oiled machine. Very hard to see the Blues, unless Loughrea have a Harry Ruddle moment at the end. Wouldn't that be ironic? It definitely would. But we'll get into the scores and the stats now, and we'll start off with the underdogs in this final, and that is Loughrea of Galway. So we'll actually go on to their journey to the final first to give the viewers a bit of a synopsis there. So they started off at the Galway Championship at the group stage by beating Kilconneran, Kilmore Daly and Crockwell in the group stages. They lost to Crockwell in the group stages. That was a bit of a turning point in terms of their season, in terms of kicking them up the backside in many ways. Look at the knockout stages. They hammered Cullen 4-15 to 13 points, and then beat Bridge by a point in the Galway quarter-final, beat Turlough by 5 in the Galway semi-final, and then in the final they beat St. Thomas's by a point. But to be fair, they were probably the better team throughout the whole 60 minutes in that game. Then obviously in the All-Ireland semi-final, they beat Slaughtneil 2-22 to 15 points. They've averaged a score 219 per game and conceded an average of 115. But obviously the main story in the Slaughtneil game was at the end, where Cúilín got that red card, harshly so, according to both of us. But let us know in the comments what you think of the Cúilín red card. Looking at Loughrea scores on top of the list, there's Tierna Cúilín with 48 points. Anthony Burns has 4 goals and 8 points, including a fantastic goal taken in the All-Ireland semi-final against Slaughtneil. Shane Morgan has 19 points, but all of them for place balls. He will be very, very crucial, no doubt about it. Vince Morgan has 4 goals and 7 points. Martin McManus has 2 goals and 12 points. Darren Shaughnessy with 3 goals and 9 points. And Jamie Ryan's on the list. Obviously, you have Kevin Cúilín there and Neil Keary. You have the suspended Colin Cúilín with 7 points, and he will be a massive miss around the middle from a Loughrea point of view. But look at those stats there, Aaron. They lost their one of their opening games against Crockwell. Loughrea, was that kind of the turning point in their season and getting them ready for an All-Ireland final? Or do you think their run was a bit too easy considering they faced, okay, it's hindsight saying this now, but they faced Slaughtneil in the semi-final compared to Ballygunner facing the likes of the Piershig, SARS, Aero Guinness, St. Martin's obviously in the semi-final along the way. Is there an argument to say, look at the runs to the final there from a Loughrea point of view, that their run was slightly easier?
Yeah, like it is interesting. It's nothing got to do with them. Do you know what I mean? It's just by the way it is. Like it is interesting. Like Loughrea were probably in the tougher championship, the tougher like county championship, than what Ballygunner were in. Do you know, like I think the standard in the Galway championship is probably you would say quite a bit higher than the Waterford championship. But it's just been after that really. Do you know, and obviously they've only had to play one game because there's no Connacht Club Hurling Championship and obviously playing the Ulster winners. And without being disrespectful, I think we would say that Slaughtneil, not by a huge margin, but probably are somewhat weaker than the Munster champions and the Leinster champions, you know, that way. So yeah, it definitely has been easier in regards to that. But look, they brushed Slaughtneil to the side. They beat them very comfortably. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like they were struggling to get over the line and everything else. They did have quite a quite a comprehensive win in regards to that. And yeah, like it is interesting. Like sometimes it can go one or two ways, as we know. Sometimes the lack of test can suit you going into a final. You can go in fresher. St. Thomas a couple of years ago benefited from it. Do you know what I mean? Like they won the All-Ireland and obviously came through Ballygunner themselves in a semi-final, albeit by penalties. You know, but it can go the other way as well, where you can sort of get caught flat, a bit like St. Thomas as well when they got beat by Dunloy. So, you know, like it can kind of go both ways. But as you said, they do have a lot of big players who could do damage, from Tierna Cúilín, as we said previously, Jamie Ryan, Anthony Burns as well. I think has been in phenomenal form for Loughrea. As you said, a phenomenal goal. He's running off the shoulder, driving deep, kind of making things happen. And one thing about Loughrea I've noticed from watching them against Thomas and even against Slaughtneil, they're not afraid to go for the jugular. They're not afraid to run at teams. And that's one thing I would say about St. Thomas, is that that's what they need to do with this Ballygunner side, because a lot of teams, in my opinion, have like been floating balls in on top of their full back line, and it's just been gobbled up. Do you know what I mean? Like Ballygunner have just come out with it. So I think for Loughrea sort of driving at that Ballygunner defence, and taking them on and going for goals, I think it's going to be crucial, because I don't think you're going to outscore Ballygunner points wise, but maybe goals could be could potentially be the difference.
Potentially. So we'll look at Ballygunner's journey to final. Ryan Gallagher has a very interesting comment, and we will get to that once we get over the stats here. So we'll get on to Ballygunner's journey to the final and then their scores. So looking at Ballygunner's journey to the final, obviously in the Waterford Championship, as Aaron touched on there, comfortable scoreline after comfortable scoreline in that game. Only De La Salle in the semi-final pushed them to single digits in the Waterford Championship. They won that game 2-16 to 113, but a bit of an asterisk there. Patrick Fitzgerald was sent off in the first half of that game, so Ballygunner were obviously going to have a bit of a blip here or there in that game, but they hammered. Look at the final scoreline there against Mount St, 235 to 116. It was an absolute slaughtering in that game. They also beat Passage in the quarterfinal 227 to 2-9 as well. Then the games obviously got tougher, as we mentioned previously. In the Munster Hurling Championship, they beat the Piershig by 3 points, 18 points to 15. They got over SARS 4-18 to 217, gaining revenge on the Cork side in that semi-final, and then beat Aero Guinness 21 points to 1-9 in a comfortable enough afternoon from a Ballygunner point of view. And then beat St. Martin's relatively comfortably after that second half performance, 19 points to 10. They've scored an average of 223, but they've conceded an average of 112. So they've averaged a winning score of 14 points. That's absolutely sensational from a Ballygunner point of view there. And look at the scores here. on their run to the final. Obviously, Desi Hutchinson, 9 goals and 77 points in the club championship this season. Pádraig Mahony has 41 points. Owen Cuddihy with 4 goals and 25 points, even though the majority of those in the Waterford Senior Hurling Championship. You have Peter Hogan around the middle of the park with 2 goals and 23 points. Patrick Fitzgerald with 3 goals and 19. Kevin Mahony up there as well with 221. Mikey Mahony, 17 points. Obviously, Harry Ruddle with 111. And he obviously had the goal scoring touch from the All-Ireland final a few years ago against Ballyhale. And then you see down the list of scores there, including the likes of Mark Hartley, Conor Tobin, and Conor Sheehan, who have been unsung heroes in many ways from the Ballygunner side of things in the squad there. The comment here from Ryan Gallagher, I want to bring this up because it is a very interesting point. I find it hard to believe that Ballygunner have won All-Ireland in 4 seasons with all their quality. I'll go to that comment first, Aaron, and obviously the stats can intertwine with that, but it's quite an interesting thing that Ballygunner have only won 1 All-Ireland in that amount of time, considering they've been dominant in Waterford. They've won all but 1 Munster Championship, which Sarah's obviously won last season. They have been dominant in nearly every facet, but they've only won 1 All-Ireland. Is there pressure on this Ballygunner team to deliver this weekend?
There probably is a little bit, yeah, to be honest with you. Like, they will be massive favourites. And given, like, some of the stats you were kind of reading through there, like Desi Hutchinson scoring 977, I mean, that's, you know, like, that's David Clifford levels with football. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's just absolutely outrageous stuff altogether. So, yeah, like, there definitely is a bit of pressure on them in regards to that. Like, there's definitely been a few moments in the last couple of seasons where they probably have been caught unexpectedly. Like, even before the year they won the All-Ireland, I remember there was a couple of games. Like, I remember there was one game, I think it might have been Boris Lee maybe, who beat them, or one of the Tipperary champions or something like that, who caught them cold. You know, obviously with SARS last season, and, you know, St. Thomas a couple of years ago, all right, fair enough, it was penalties, a little bit unlucky there. But, you know, yeah, like there has been kind of a few moments where they have been caught. And, like, especially when you're looking at how comfortable it's actually been for them. I feel like they've almost been like architects of their own downfall a little bit, you know, like they've been so good that it's almost felt like they've beaten themselves, you know, like a little bit. And like there's even been moments this season as well where they have underperformed a little bit, but they've managed to sort of dig themselves out of it. Like I remember against the Napirshick in that game in the Munster Hurling Championship, like Napirshick had a lot of chances that day to beat them, a lot of opportunities, and probably should have beaten them that day. But it was in the final 10 minutes where Ballygunner sort of stepped it up and turned it on, and were able to kind of find an extra gear in and amongst themselves. So there is pressure. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, all Irelands are very hard to win. Like we call it the toughest for a reason. You know, like if they hadn't won one, then you would be kind of questioning the mentality of the team a little bit. But they have won one, and obviously they beat a very good team in the process of doing that in Ballyhale. So yeah, there is pressure on them. There's no doubt about it. And look, if they were to lose on Sunday, you would absolutely say it's another one that's gotten away from them. And considering they've only won one in their history, do you know what I mean? Like it's not 10, 15 years time, like, I don't know, Ballygunner they mightn't have as good of players as they have now. So when you have this opportunity, you need to capitalize on it.
Exactly. So Peter has a question in here. Having faced Ballygunner with SARS, what would be the key advice you'd give Loughrea management? It's as simple as this, but it's easier said than done. I think you have to be perfectionist at every facet of the game. You have to run at Ballygunner. You have to be tenacious in the tackle. It's as simple as that. Like, you can't make errors either against this Ballygunner team because they will punish you. Desi Hutchinson has done it time and time again in this championship. Patrick Fitzgerald has as well. And you have to stop their runners around the middle of the park as well. The likes of Peter Hogan, Conor Sheehan, like, they are powerful players, and they will be difficult for Loughrea to stop. And as we preview the hurling final, we have our third musketeer in the studio, and it is Liam White. So how are things, Liam? Obviously, club final weekend. Looking forward to it this weekend. And how you been?
Yeah, not too bad. Sorry that I'm late as usual again. Work's taken over a lot lately. But I got to tune into some of the bits that you were saying at the start regarding Laker Gale as well. And just picking who you'd have for 2 new episodes. I don't think he has one. I'd go with Joe Canning. I would love to see one about him, considering the history he has with the county board in Galway, but I suppose as well the history behind the Canning family, winning the All-Ireland with Portumna, winning the All-Ireland in 2017. I'd love to see that. And then if I was to choose one from my own county, plain simple, Brian Wheelahan, one of the best hurlers of all time, probably the greatest hurler to play for Offaly. So I'd love to see a story behind that. We had Johnny Pilkington a couple of years ago, and well, we learned a lot about Johnny then, and I'd love to learn a bit more about Brian Wheathand this time. But yeah, in terms of the games this weekend, yeah, I've been critical of Ballygunner all season, and not even in a way of how they play. I just have been someone who has always felt that Ballygunner have been a team that have underperformed over the last number of years, to have the talent that they have, to have the squad that they have, and to have been winning the Munster Championships the way that they have, to only have one All-Ireland in their pocket. And even then, if we're being fair, they also got fortunate to get a great last-minute goal, but they also got fortunate to win that final. So I have just been someone who's been very critical of them, and I think I predicted them to go out in every round since this Munster Championship and All-Ireland series started. Yeah, I won't be doing that this weekend. No offense to Loughrea, but I just don't see them beating Ballygunner this weekend, to be honest with you. I think this Ballygunner team, especially against St. Martin's, they really impressed me. Like, they went 8-5 or 10-5 down or something like that in the All-Ireland semi-final, and the way they just upped their gears in the second half to get 13, 14 points in a row, which was absolutely sensational. And I mean, Desi Hutchinson is having the season of his life. You know, he's absolutely on fire at the moment, and I don't think any defender in the country at the moment is stopping him in the form that he's in. So yeah, look, Loughrea will absolutely have a chance. There's no question about it. You know, it's an All-Ireland final. At the end of the day, you're going to go into it with confidence, and look, they have some very good players in the team. I know they have the red card with Cúilín, and that's quite unfortunate, but you still have Anthony Burns in there, who's still won the fight, who's still a very, very good corner forward, and especially with the goal that he got in the All-Ireland semi-final as well, he's well capable of pulling off a big moment for Loughrea. You have Jamie Ryan at wing forward, who had a good game the last day. Vince Morgan as well got a goal the last day. So there's every opportunity, but I just don't see anyone beating this Ballygunner team this weekend. I think it's going to be, I think probably compared to the football, I don't think it'll be as close, to be honest.
Do you think the Cúilín suspension, as we're recording right now, do you think that's the final nail of the Loughrea coffin game?
I wouldn't say it's the final nail in the coffin, but it certainly doesn't help. You know, like you've a player there who's really, really a big quality player and is a really big presence in the middle of the park, or in around the middle third. And when you're coming up against the Ballygunner midfield, and I'm just kind of laughing, because the way you kind of said it yourself and how to stop Ballygunner, another big way is just literally get up in their faces, because we saw it last year with G. You just stood up to them, you fought against them, you pushed up against them, and you went ruthless on them. Do you know what I mean? That's what Loughrea nearly have to do this weekend. But when you're coming up against, like, this is an animal in Ballygunner, and they nearly seem to have kicked up an extra gear since beating the Piercy. It's almost like that game sort of woke them up a bit and said, right, we need to sort ourselves out here, to be honest with you. But I mean, you're coming up against, let's be honest, an inter-county midfield in Sheehan and Levy. You know, it's not going to be simple. And when you have a player of Cúilín, the quality of him being out, it doesn't help, to be honest with you. But yeah, look, and especially with the way they do, you know, it's the way Ballygunner play when they're just striking the ball off one hurl off to each other, which I don't like. I'll be honest with you, I don't like watching that stuff, but it works for them and it's effective. So I wouldn't say it's the final nail in the coffin, but it certainly probably takes their hopes of winning the game down by about 10-15%, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. So it is going to be very difficult to see how Loughrea win this game. I think we probably emphasise this enough, lads, in terms of the predictions, but it is prediction time, obviously. Ballygunner going into this as massive favourites. Loughrea going into it as underdogs, hoping for their first All-Ireland title in their history. So Ballygunner against Loughrea, call it, lads. Who is going to get their hands on the All-Ireland's Club Senior Hurling Championship title on Sunday in Croke Park at 1:30? Aaron, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I'll go for Ballygunner to win. I think they're going to win comfortably, to be honest with you. I think they've far too much firepower all across the field, like we were mentioning previously with Desi Hutchinson, with Porrick O'Mahony, with Pat Fitzgerald. Far too strong. They've been here, they've done it before, they did it a couple of years ago. I think they'll do it again. I think for Loughrea, it's been incredible for them to get to this stage and get to the final. And look, stranger things have happened. It wouldn't be the biggest shock in the history of hurling for them to go and do it. But like when you look at how comfortable as well, like Ballygunner, like beating top teams like Sarsfields, Aero Ennis as well, like had a very good season, got some very good players. And then after what St. Martin's did as well, like St. Martin's beat Nafina, the All-Ireland champions, and Ballyhale, and Ballygunner just brushed them to the side comfortably. So yeah, I think Ballygunner are going to win the game by 7 points.
Liam?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Ballygunner as well. I think it could be similar enough to maybe how Nafina kind of won it last year. I think they're just going to go for the juggler in the first half, maybe ease off a bit in the second half. Loughrea might get a purple patch, get a couple of scores here and there. But yeah, look, I just think Ballygunner are going to be too strong this weekend. And being back in Croke Park as well, which they haven't done for, 4 years now? I think was it the Ballyhill All-Ireland semi-final was the last time that they played in Croke Park. So yeah, they'll no doubt enjoy being back on that surface. This time of the year, the type of ground Croke Park is, it'll probably suit their brand of hurling, to be honest with you, a lot more maybe than Loughrea. So yeah, I'm going to go Ballygunner, and I'm going to go Ballygunner by about 8 points.
To be honest, I can't see a shot this weekend either. I'm going to go for the three-peat. I think Ballygunner will get over the line. I don't think this would have been a key factor even beforehand. I think Loughrea would have pushed them closer if it wasn't a factor, though. Cúilín being suspended, that is a big, big blow for Loughrea. If he was there on the middle of the park, he would have battled with Peter Hogan, he would have battled with Conor Sheehan. They don't have that Tigers battler now, Loughrea, and they badly needed him in this final. But unfortunately, that harsh red card has kind of cost their chances in fairness from a Loughrea point of view. But this Ballygunner team, this is only their second appearance in Croke Park, which is quite their third appearance. Obviously, they reached the All-Ireland semi-final a few years ago against Ballyhale and lost that game. But they know how to win a final in Croke Park once they get there. High Ruddle, okay, might be a fluky goal. D. Mason on another game would have saved that shot. But they won the game, and they know how to win in Croke Park. Loughrea haven't got that experience, and this Ballygunner team have been knocking the door for years. I think one of the comments Brian Gallagher said earlier, they've been at this rodeo for 4 or 5 years, and they've won All-Ireland the show right now. They'll be desperate to get a second All-Ireland, and Jason Ryan hasn't changed much. I think Colin Parkinson mentioned this earlier on X today. He hasn't changed the winning formula that Darragh Sullivan has created with Ballygunner. And I think that was probably the right thing to do, to keep with the same formula and things like that. So I feel like Ballygunner will get over the line. I think it'll be comfortable enough. And I think they will win this game by about 8 points. It should be comfortable enough. But Loughrea have had a good campaign themselves, beating Shlotney, beating St. Thomas's. They've had a good campaign. Whatever happens on Sunday, they should be proud of their efforts. But Ballygunner will be just too strong on the day. We will move on to the football final now. And this throws in at 3:40 on Sunday in Croke Park, and it is between Dingle in their first ever All-Ireland final against St. Brigid's in their second All-Ireland final in 3 years. Brigid's looking for their first All-Ireland since 2013, while Dingle are looking obviously for their first ever, playing in their first ever All-Ireland final, but hoping to make it a three-peat for West Kerry after Ballymcgilligan and on Gales up to won the junior and intermediate crowns last Sunday. I'll go to you first, Aaron, on this game. We're saying Ballygunner were comfortable enough prediction in fairness for the hurling, but this game is a lot closer to God.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can make a case for either team here, to be honest with you. It was kind of like that going into the semi-finals as well, like with all 4 teams, and you saw as well, like there was very little between a lot of them. Do you know what I mean? It is incredibly tight to call. Like you feel like with Dingle, they have all the individual brilliance in terms of Paul Gainey and Conor Gainey, Tom O'Sullivan. Like they have the individual talents and the brilliance, but looking at it the other way, like Brigids, Brigids came up against individual talents and brilliance in Scottstown in terms of Rory Beggan and Jack McCarran, Conor McCarthy, and they were able to nullify them, especially Rory Beggan. Like they kept him down to a point. So like without question, like Brigids tactically, like they got it absolutely spot on against Scottstown, and that's been one thing that's been very apparent about Brigids. Like Brigids definitely probably don't have the firepower than what Dingle has. Like they do have some phenomenal forwards, don't get me wrong, like Ben O'Carroll and Bobby Nugent, but it's not to the same level of Paul Gainey and Conor Gainey and whatnot. So it will be very interesting to see what type of a plan Brigids come up with for Paul Gainey. Like I think that's going to be one of the very kind of interesting points to this. Is Mark O'Connor playing, lads? I think have we heard he's playing? Yeah, like that's going to be huge as well. Like you think Dingle have a huge will be able, especially with Dingle. Like I suppose they came up against Ballybowden. Ballybowden were kind of trading blow for blow. Like Ballybowden were running at Dingle and causing them all sorts of problems. I think Brigids will be a lot more controlled. Like I think if Brigids get a lead like Ballybowden got, I don't think they lose it, to be honest with you. So that's the kind of big thing, but it's going to be very interesting. You've got you've kind of got 2 different styles a little bit. And I think that's what's going to make this very interesting.
Exactly. So Shane, a regular commentator, a man from Kerry, I can gather as well, is saying Mark O'Connor, I think, will be the most important player to get Dingle over the line. Peter agrees and saying, yeah, Mark O'Connor got released. Geelon are sound. Obviously, they are sound. You don't see inter-county sides releasing players for the Secrets and Cup, but then we talked about that last week. Peter saying, if this is level at full time, does it go to a replay? I think it does, because the Camogie went to a replay. So I know there's a different organisation there, but I think I'm pretty sure it goes to a replay if it is a draw after normal time. I suppose, Liam, as I said to Aaron there, like, it is a difficult one to call. Mark O'Connor might be the grain of rice in fairness, but this Brigids team, they've been in this rodeo, like Ballygunner in many ways, for a number of years now. They won their All-Ireland in 2013. I wouldn't say they've been as dominant as Ballygunner over the last few years. They lost the Roscommon title to Patrick Pearson last year. But they'll be probably experienced going to this final. Dingle for the first time in their history. But again, it's two very good football sides here.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the one thing for Dingle is you're going into an All-Ireland final for the first time. It's nearly a free shot to a degree, to be honest with you, because even for them, winning the Kerry Championship probably wasn't on their radar to a degree, because there was a lot of other teams, your likes of Dr. Crokes down there, etc., that a lot of people would have been probably fancying to win the Kerry Championship, and then to go on and win the Munster Championship, and especially in the fashion that they did. Obviously, there was a controversy around the 50-meter free or whatever, but they still won the game, and then to come back and I thought they were dead and buried after the first 5 minutes against Ballygunner St. They conceded the first 7 points of the game. They were 9 points down at one stage. I was thinking this is going to be a hockey in for Ballygunner St. They were so comfortable in the game. But it's the one thing with Dingle, they just don't know how to give up. They don't know how to refuse. They don't know how to give in. I still love to know the injury that Gainey had the last day to then come on the second half and do what he did, and especially kicking the point he did at the end off his. I think this is bullshit, but his weaker foot. You don't do that on your weaker foot. I'm sorry, that's rubbish. He's definitely like I'm trying to think now who's that's really good with Shane Walsh. He's definitely like a Shane Walsh, just left foot, right foot, doesn't matter. He's excellent with both. But no, that Dingle team, I really like the chaotic football that they play. O'Sullivan coming up from cornerback or wingback, whichever position he'll be playing on the day, and scoring the points outside of his boot as well. It's beautiful to watch, to be honest with you. You obviously have all the Gainies who are just mad football men altogether, and have contributed so much to Kerry football over the years. But even speaking to, I was speaking to John Murray earlier. He's an assistant coach. He's part of the management team with St. Brigids, and he said himself, "We're not thinking about Dingle. Whatever they do, whatever they're thinking of doing, that's up to them. We're worrying about ourselves and we're concentrating on ourselves." And that's exactly the way they need to be thinking as well. Obviously, you need to respect your opponent going into an All-Ireland final, but Brigids have their own talents. They have O'Carroll at corner forward. They have Mark Daly, Conor Hand, Nugent. They have some really, really talented players. Rory Fallon, who I rate very, very highly as well. Brian Stack at centre back. So, they'll be going into this game very, very confident. And like I said, they've won the All-Ireland before. They won it back in 2013, and they're unfortunate not to win it 2 years. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago against Glen? Losing out by a point. So, and like you mentioned there, it's not easy to win the Roscommon Championship from their perspective. Okay, themselves and Port Pierces are realistically out in front probably of everybody to a degree, but it's still not easy to win that championship, I'd argue, and then, they had to come to a really tough battle against Cúilín in a Connacht final. And then against Scottstown, I mean, I was really impressed with how they nullified a lot of Scottstown's players, to be honest with you, and they shut them down and they controlled the tempo of the game. And I never really felt like throughout, especially the second half, that it was going to be anything but a Brigids win. And that's testament to how they're set up, to be honest with you, and the way Anthony Cunningham has them set up. So, look, I think, like you said there, I think it makes for a very fascinating final. I could genuinely see this going to a draw or going to extra time, whichever one it does end up being on the day. But I could definitely see it being a game that goes right down to the wire. And I'm still kind of sitting here wondering who will I call it for. I'd be happy for either one, whoever wins it. But I think we're in for a very, very interesting final.
Exactly. So a few interesting comments in here. Love to see it, lads. Gavin O'Reilly saying here, I think Matthew's point about how many times Scottstown got over they got get out of scenarios could be applied to Dingle. The pain of that Glen game, Brigids will be aware. Peter saying, and a bit of a question for all of us, Brigids well structured and organised. Woody has described Dingle as the most pure football team in club or county level. Would you agree with that assessment, lads? I'll throw that one to you, Aaron, first. Would you agree with Colin Parkinson's assessment there of Dingle being the most pure football team in recent history?
I'd probably say the Kerry football team, the Kerry county team, maybe it probably are a little bit more Yeah, like maybe just at a higher level. But look, I do get his point, to be fair. I think in terms of a club team, it's hard to kind of disagree with that. Like I thought Ballybowden, look, we're very pure in terms of how they play football as well. Obviously, it's a little bit maybe different when you're able to bring lads in from different counties and everything else. And look, obviously they lost the game, they kind of fell apart in that game. So but yeah, no, you probably would agree with it in terms of how they do play football. But look, it is the Kerry way. Do you know what I mean? Like I've never known a Kerry team to play any differently than how Dingle play. We saw some of it even with on Gale talked recently, as well, like at the weekend, Ballymackelligate as well. Do you know that way? So it is the Kerry way. And when you have pure footballers like Paul Gainey, Tom O'Sullivan, who are not afraid to take the shot on, if they get the opportunity, even half a yard, they'll go for it. Do you know what I mean? If it's a 2-pointer, 1-pointer, it doesn't matter if it's a goal. And in fairness to Kerry, you know, like a lot of counties down the years have come up with multiple different ways of winning All Irelands. Kerry has always had the one way, and to be fair, it's probably because they've been the best at it. You know, they've been better than anyone else at it. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So an interesting comment here from Shane as well. Sorry to be pessimistic, but as much as it sets up to be a close game, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up like the inter-county final between Kerry and Donegal and one team ends up winning. It's slightly handier than expected. Peter replies to that saying, could well be, as Aaron has referenced, the Kerry way. Could we see battering Liam, do you think?
Oh, we could. I don't want to go full McCarthy. It can happen, but you know, like it's. Sorry, I got too used to saying that in college with the boys. But yeah, look, we could absolutely see. We could see two hammerings. There's absolutely no question about it. We could see Ballygunner blitz Loughrea. We could see Dingle go out and absolutely penetrate St. Brigid's. We could see Loughrea do it, or we could see who again, Dingle. We could see any one of them do it, to be honest with you. But I just don't see it happening with this game, to be honest with you, because we've seen Dingle nearly be on the end of two batterings in our last two games, and they've fought back so well. And especially with the players that they do have, you know, your Mark O'Connors, your Gainies, they're not going to give in very easily. It's also not the Kerry way. If there ever is a saying of Kerry way, it's that they don't give in. They never ever give up, no matter how much they lose by or they're losing by. Even the years that, you know, Dublin were ahead of them with the 6 in a row, Kerry never laid down and sat back against Dublin. They fought against them. It's just Dublin were just ahead of them during those couple of years. But yeah, look, and Brigids as well. I mean, they've won in All Ireland by, was it 1 point or 2 points against Ballymun? Was it 1 point or 2 points? Aaron, I can't remember.
Against Ballymun?
Yeah, was it 1 point or 2 point they won by?
I think it was a point, but I'm sure there'll be people in the comments a good while ago now. You're the one with the scores. I know they lost to Glen by 1. I was too busy crying after Kilcormac lost to Hurling, so I wouldn't remember. But yeah, no, they know how to win it by a point. They know how to lose it by a point. You know, so I just don't see this game going down the route of it being over after 30 minutes. It looked like that with Cúilín last year in their final against Errigal Kieran, but then you saw the fight back that they had in the second half, and it went right down to the wire. So maybe it could be a case like that. We could see Dingle just come out the blocks firing and having a right go and just saying, let's go for the jugular. Let's carry on the momentum from Ballybun. I've lost my train of thought now.
You want your dog leader.
What was I saying? Yeah, Dingle could come out for the, for God's sake, Dingle could come out and absolutely blitz Brigids in the first half. But then I could see Brigids pulling off a second half comeback and making it close again. The hurling, I could see it potentially being a battering, but I don't see the football being a battering. I think they're too close of two teams. I think they're much closer than what Loughrea and Ballygunner are. So
exactly. So we will get on to the stats finally from Dingle and Brigids ones. We will start off with the Kerry champions and the Munster champions, that is Dingle. So we'll start off with their journey to the final. They beat Gael, West Kerry and Mid Kerry to reach the Kerry final, and then they beat Sax impressively enough in their Kerry final 2-13 to 1-12. Hammered Munster St. Paul's in the semi-final of Munster 2-15 to 2 points. And then obviously with that Conor Gainey 2-pointed kick, beat St. Finbarrs at the end and hurled 118 to 20 points. And then another thriller in the All-Ireland semi-final, they beat Ballybowden St. Enda's 126 to 124 after extra time. They've averaged a score of 119 per game and conceded an average of 16 points. Look at their scores up until the final stage. Paul Gainey has 4 goals and 29 points. Conor Gainey has 3 goals and 18. Dylan Gainey with 22 points. Thomas Sullivan with 116. Niall Gainey up there with 12 points. And then you can see down the list there the likes of Matthew Flaherty, Toyd De Bruyne, who got a goal in that semi-final against Ballygunner St. Endes. Nate Ryan up there as well. And Mark O'Connor, surprisingly, only has 2 points in this campaign against St. Finbarrs and Ballygunner St. Endes. But I suppose, look at that scoring and the stats there, Aaron. Like out of the top 5 list, 4 of them are Gainies, whether they're cousins or brothers. I'm actually not entirely sure which is which now, but that indicates a great family feel. And obviously Thomas Sullivan there as well with 1 goal and 16 points for Conor back, even though he doesn't play there too often, I would argue. That's an incredible tally, I would say, from his point of view as well. But this Dingle team is tightly knit, and you could look at their scores there and you could argue that is the case.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, I'm sure the crack in the Gainey household and the build up to this has definitely been interesting, and I'm sure it'll be even better. You know, if they win on Sunday. But yeah, like they've got a phenomenal phenomenal squad, like so much scoring power. Like obviously with the Gainies, but you know when you have Toyd De Bruyne as well, who's absolutely who scored a brilliant goal. Obviously the last day. And Mark O'Connor back in the team as well. So yeah, they have the scoring power, they have the firepower, like they have the players. You know, that's the thing with Dingle. If Dingle are 2 points down going into injury time, they've been there and done it. They obviously did something similar against the Bars with a last minute kick. They turned it around versus Ballyboden as well. And you know what? Like if Dingle do go and do it, like it will go down as one of the great All-Irelands in terms of the late wins and the turnarounds and the comebacks and everything else. I know I do get Gavin's point a little bit earlier. Like it's not sustainable in that kind of regards. You can't rely on that. But look, they only have to do it one more time now. You're in a final now, so. But yeah, it is incredible scoring power for Dingle.
Exactly so, and Dylan Duffy has cleared it up. Thank you, Dylan, for this comment. Dylan and Conor Gainey are brothers, and Paul is their cousin. They're all related. One more question for you, Dylan, if you are still about Niall Gainey. Is he Paul's brother then? I'm actually not sure, but I'm sure you will know in the comments there if Niall Gainey is. He's another fantastic player, I would argue as well from a Dingle point of view. But we will get on to Brigids scores and stats, starting off with their journey to the final. So from a Brigids point of view, they beat Elphin, Western Gales and in the first 2 rounds of the Roscommon Senior Football Championship, but lost to Michael Glavies in the 3rd round, 113 to 11 points. That gave them the kick up the backside that they did need going to the knockout stage. They beat Roscommon Gales 118 to 17, and then Clondegale in the semi-final 16 points to 11, and needed 2 games to get over Padraig Pearse, eventually beating them in the replay 116 to 112. They beat Ballygunner St in the Connacht Senior Football Championship semi-final 121 to 38, and they beat Ballygunner 116 to 114, with Rory Fallon's goal being the key score in that Connacht final. And they beat Scottstown in a professional-like performance 116 to 112 in that game, where there were heroes all over the pitch in that game. Sean Trundle in particular with that block from Jack McCarron at the very end. They averaged a score of 118 per game and conceded an average of 111 per game. So that's interestingly a bigger margin of winning than Dingle. So could that be crucial? We'll get on to Liam in his thoughts in just a sec. Look at their scores from Brigid's point of view. Bobby Nugent is on top there with 39 points. Ben O'Hara with 129 is in second. Then you have Conor Handon 18 points. Eddie Nolan with 3 goals and 8 points. Kieran Suru 113. Shane Canan up there with 15. Brian Durham with 2-9, including a fantastic goal against Scottstown in the All-Ireland semi-final. You can see down the list there in terms of their scores. Rory Fallon getting interesting scores in this campaign, same as Paul McGrath, who was absolutely brilliant in the semi-final against Scottstown. That's a quite interesting figure, Liam. Winning an average winning margin of 7 points for Brigids, average winning margin of 6 for Dingle. Could that be the grain of rice in many ways? Have Brigids been more efficient in many ways in their wins? And when you look at Dingle, they needed extra time to beat Ballyboden. They only beat the Bars by a point. Could you argue Brigids have been more professional in what they've been doing?
It probably could. They're not conceding a lot in games as well. I mean, they only conceded was a 1-12 to Scottstown, and I mean the Ballinasstevenites game I think needs to be taken in with a pinch of salt. The fact that I think then they pretty much had that game wrapped up by halftime. I think then Ballina have like 1 point by halftime or something like that. But they had like 3 goals or something, or there was something mad stat like that. So like they are winning these games rather comfortably. I'd say the only ones that they haven't won as comfortably were probably Cúilín and obviously the Pork Pierce's games, because I had to go to a replay. And even the second day, they were the better side, but it was by no stretch of the imagination a walk in the park. But it's very impressive from a Brigid's perspective that they have the amount of scores that they do across the pitch, and that is massive for them. Obviously, look, we've seen teams in the past get carried by, say, or not even get carried, but there's one player who is doing the most amount of scoring each and every game. You think of Cúilín Mannion at the moment for Galway. Obviously, David Clifford does a lot of scoring for Kerry. Lee Chin does a huge amount of the scoring for the Wexford Hurlers. But Brigids are different. You see Bobby Nugent, like I mentioned there, 39 points. Ben O'Carroll, 129. Connor Hand, 18 points. Eddie Nolan, 38. Kieran Surge at 113. You know, Shane Conan, 15 points. Paul McGrath is 8 with 14 points. Like, that's very, very impressive, to be honest with you, because in most other clubs, he could be third or potentially even second on the list with that tally. So it shows you that they've got scores all across the pitch, and that's exactly what they're going to need this weekend in order to beat this Dingle team. And look, they are very solid defensively as well, which will probably will stand out to them to a degree. Now, that's easier said than done against the likes of the Gainies, for example, or, Thomas Sullivan run up the pitch, or Mark O'Connor in the middle of the park. But yeah, look, Brigids are a very, very strong team. They have a lot of really good players in this team. There might be a couple of 2-pointers in this game potentially as well. I think they're going to have to stop Gainey and O'Sullivan scoring 2-pointers, to be honest with you. If they can stop that, then they have a massive, massive chance in this game. And I'm kind of slightly starting to lean towards them. And I'm doing this against the will of thinking that Dingle are the comeback kings over the last couple of weeks. And like Aaron said there, could go down as one of the greatest All-Ireland club wins of all time, considering the teams that they have beaten to get here and the manner that they've done it. But Brigids are just very, very solid. Like you mentioned there, like, they're winning these games in very, very good fashion, very, very comfortable fashion, and like very, very professionally as well, bar, I would say, the Connacht final and the Roscommon final. So yeah, look, they're coming into this off really, really good form. And even like I mentioned, speaking to John Murray earlier, they feel like they're in really, really good shape to right the wrongs of a couple of years ago. But yeah, no, look, I'm really impressed with a lot of their scoring tallies this season, I have to say.
I have to say the comment section is on fire tonight, and great lads, obviously, with the inter-county season just around the corner. It's absolutely brilliant to see. Shane from Kerry actually says another comment in here, very interesting. Paul Gainey is actually married to Paulie O'Shea's daughter, as Paul's brother-in-law, Padraig Oak, already won an All-Ireland club last weekend, obviously with Gaeltacht. So quite an interesting bit of trivia there. Obviously, Peter saying, lads, how many 2-pointers will you predict? Well, Liam predicted a couple there. Yeah, I think there'll be a good load, in fairness. Dylan saying here, Paul Gainey has a brother called Michael Gainey, who played with Kerry team in the mid-2010s, and he's on the bench in this game as well. Very interesting question here. Where would you guys put Brian Stack? In other words, I think Gavin is asking, who would you put him on? Paul Gainey, lads, what do you think?
I don't know, I know he has played a full back in the past, but correct me if I'm wrong, he does play mostly around centre back, and Paul Gainey be sort of corner forward. I don't know, I think you want Brian Stack's work, and you want him in his best position, and you want him to, Brigids need to focus on what they're good at. You take Brian Stack into a cornerback position where he hasn't necessarily played sort of all season, and that could be kind of a big blow in regards to that. Look, I would be curious to know what Roscommon fans kind of think in regards to that. But I do think the Paul Gainey one is it really, really is an interesting one, to be fair. In terms of who actually does go on him. And just looking at the Brigids team here, Sean Trundle has been very impressive, to be fair, from a Brigids perspective. Could you go maybe with him?
On Paul Gainey, is it?
Yeah.
With regards Brian Stack, I think when Dingle have a kick out, I think push him up to midfield to try and win the ball in the air. And then for the opposite kick outs, just have him floating around looking for the ball at any given possibility to try and build up the attacks. If I was to put him on any player, I actually think potentially throw him on Dylan Gainey. I think he could have a big impact on this game, to be honest with you, if you were to throw him on a specific player. In terms of who you throw on Paul Ganey, I mean, sure, Jesus, I think you could throw God on him and he might still get a couple of scores, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's, you see,
do you put two on him, but then you're kind of,
well, then I feel like you're leaving yourself exposed to the rest of the Dingle attack as well, which is very, very strong. Rory Fallon, I feel, could do a good job, to be fair, but then I suppose you're taking away him as well. You could drop Conan back. I hope I'm probably butchering how I'm saying his name there. You could drop him back, potentially play a bit of a sweeper to a degree, especially maybe even in the first half if things aren't going too well. But yeah, look, I think putting two people on Paul Ganey, it probably seems logical, but I suppose with Croke Park, I mean, you saw it in the All-Ireland final with putting Cole, wasn't it Cole that was marking Clifford in the All-Ireland final, and just him watching him the entire game, and it still wasn't enough to stop him, you know, and it was freeing up other players like Gavin White that day and Paddy Clifford and those types of players. So I don't know if putting two men on him would be the wisest idea. Maybe if it was in a tighter pitch, possibly it might work. But I just feel in Croke Park, with the amount of space that's there and the capabilities of these lads to score 2 pointers, I wouldn't be so sure about it. But look, I mean, I'm not in management, so I could be wrong in saying that. But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, exactly. So it will be very interesting. Peter saying, who's refereeing, lads? I double checked on the GA website. It has been announced yet, apparently. Or they have just not bothered to put it on the website. Hopefully not Dick Turpin. Yeah.
Martin McNally, I believe, from Monaghan.
Oh, is it? Okay. Interesting.
I'm judging it off Scorpio. I think it's Martin McNally.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I've heard a few. I will say a few Meath fans don't particularly like him, but yeah, that's just Meath. But we'll move on anyway. We'll move on to the big match prediction in Dingle versus Brigids. And just before that as well, like, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Just before we get on to the prediction, who's going to mark the Dingle the Brigids forwards? You've Ben O'Carroll there. You've Brian Derwin. You've Bobby Nugent. People talk about the Dingle forwards. Yes, Conor Ganey, Paul Ganey, absolutely excellent players. But from a Dingle point of view, do you take away Thomas Sullivan's threat and put him on Ben O'Carroll? Or do you put some other Dingle player on? It'll be interesting to see that too.
I think the only benefit with putting O'Sullivan on Carroll is that they both have to mark each other. You know, like, I think that's kind of been I'm even thinking back to times when we've had to think, you know, I was even trying to think back to when we played Ballyhale in the summer, or in the winter, who would we put on a TJ Reid? You're thinking, do you put someone like a Jordan Quinn, which you did eventually, and just leave him absolutely man-marking for the game, or do you put a Keelan Kiley on him? Because that means that while Keelan has to mark him, TJ has to mark him. I think if you put O'Sullivan on Carroll, it means they both have to mark each other, but that could leave, that could leave O'Sullivan very, very exposed. I think Tom Leo O'Sullivan would be the absolute perfect man to go on Carroll, to be honest with you. I think very close man marker, no nonsense fullback. I'd probably go for him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting thing to see in terms of the matchups this Sunday. But we have gone to that time in the show, lads, for prediction time. Dingle looking for their first All-Ireland in their history, playing first All-Ireland final, of course. St. Brigid's for their second All-Ireland title in history and their first since 2013. Obviously, hoping to banish the demons of 2024 after losing to Waterford in January of that year. So, Dingle versus St. Brigid's, call it. I'll go to you, Liam, first.
Draw, replay, Brigids by 1.
It's very, very hard to follow that one up. Just I feel like that was ice cold. Do you know what I mean? You just stared us down a bar, like, and completely threw us off there. But no, look, I think I'll go for Dingle, to be honest with you. I'll back their individual quality and their individual brilliance. You know, like, I think especially with the way that Gaelic football is now, like, it very much does favour a team who can kick 2-pointers, who can, you know, kick huge amount of numbers. They've extraordinary firepower. They've proven it all season long. You know, like, if they're 5, 6, 7 points down, you'd never back against them, because they've been there and done it in terms of coming back. I do think it'll be very close, though. I'll go for a 2-point win by Dingle. I think it could go to extra time as well. Like, it will be very, very close. But I think this is almost going to be like the role reversal of the Ballyboden game. Like, I think Dingle will actually start very strong, very fast, full of confidence. And I think Brigids will gradually sort of wheel them in a bit towards the end, but Dingle will hang on and win the game.
So I get the casting vote on this. I think it will be tight, will be close, obviously. Both sides have proven to be fantastic sides up until this final. I'm going to edge it just because of final experience and because they lost the final 2 years ago. I'm edging it to Brigids because I feel like it's their time. I think it is their time. Dingle have been absolutely fantastic in this championship, beating St. Finbarrs, beating Ballygunner, beating Austin Stacks. They have been fantastic in this journey. Paul Gainey, Conor Gainey, Dylan Gainey, they will have huge roles to play, as will Mark O'Connor in this game. The question mark is, how do you stop the threat from the Brigid side of things? Ben O'Carroll hasn't really hit light in this championship so far. His time will be on Sunday. I'm pretty sure of that. Bobby Nugent, absolutely brilliant footballer, needs minding. Brian Durbin, crucial goal in the All-Ireland semi-final against Scottstown. And they were ahead in that game against Waterford. They had the game by the grasp of their fingers. They had the game. Then Conor Glass turns into a prime himself and gets Waterford over the line. I feel like Brigids would have learned a lot from that final. Anthony Cunningham knows how to get over the line with these sorts of teams as well. He is a very experienced coach too. I think it will be enough. I think Brigids will get over the line and it will be by 1 point. It'll be close either way, but I feel like Brigids will get over the line. It will be a very close game though. Shane, obviously from Kerry, saying Dingle by 3 and West Kerry to be lit up again. Peter Griffin saying Dingle Hoosh by 5 and another trad session in the Boar's Head. So yeah, I think most the commenters are saying Dingle, but myself and Liam are predicting Brigids win, and Aaron is predicting Dingle. We'll have to see what happens. It will be a close game either way. We will talk about the college competitions in just a sec, but just to note as well, I actually forgot about this as well. The league kicks off at Intercounty. It's LGFA week. It actually kicks off this weekend. Division 4 kicks off in the Little National League this weekend. So the games this weekend, they're all at 2 p.m. this Sunday. So Carlow are at home to Sligo. Longford hosts Leitrim. Derry are against Kilkenny. And Wicklow host Liam's own county, Offaly, this weekend on Sunday. I'll go to you first, Liam. Wicklow against Offaly. Are you confident about the Offaly LGFA team this year?
Yeah, well, look, we have a new manager in this year, and I suppose the only way to respond is to go back up, to be honest with you. The only way that we're going to get back to any sort of competitiveness, because it's unfortunate the way that it went last year. I mean, I can remember last year, in around the time I started working with Midlands 103, Offaly LGFA was in an absolute, like, pardon my French, it was in a shit show, to be honest with you. Like, there was no PRO, there was no manager, I believe there was no chairman at one point as well. Like, there was no posts about any match updates or team lineups or anything like that for a while. And it's a shame because we've been affected by players going over to Australia the last couple of years, and Kay Kenny's been probably the biggest one that's gone over, and more luck to her. Jesus, she's an absolutely incredible player in Australia, and she was unbelievable here as well. But players have just decided that they want to go over to Australia, and that's completely fair. I don't blame them in the slightest, but it has hit us over the last number of years, and the mismanagement of panels and managers and everything like that over the last couple of years. And I suppose, yeah, I mean, we're so far down at the moment that the only way to go is up. So, look, I'd have, I see a comment from Peter, are there many LGFA clubs around? There's a good few. There's a good few LGFA clubs, but this is the thing is that there's a lot of really good LGFA clubs as well. Naomh Ciaran have a lot of really good players. Ballinamere have great players. Tullamore have very good players. There's a lot of really good, there's a lot of really good LGFA players in the county. And I hope we can just get promotion out of Division 4, to be honest with you. Like, we should be competing in Division 3 realistically. But look, I'm going to back them to go up. I have backed them to go up this year. And I'm going to stand by that. I think we should be able to go up comfortably enough. But having said that, with all for the LGFA the last couple of years, nothing surprises me anymore. But I'm going to say I have a bit of hope this year. Even listening to interviews from the manager last week, and I can't remember off the top of my head who it was that Will O'Connor was speaking to, one of the players, but they sounded really positive ahead of the season, and they sounded like they were really going to go for promotion this year. So look, I'm hopeful, but as we know with Offaly LGFA, anything can happen.
Exactly. So, like, just some quick picks over this. I think Carlow will beat Sligo. I think Leitrim will beat Longford. Leitrim realistically should not be in Division 4. They were senior last year. I know they went down, but they should not be a Division 4 team. I don't know how they're in that division. I think Offaly will be Wicklow. I agree with you, Liam. I think, look, they have to recover. They have to start some way, and they have to start up the ladder. But I think a prediction of the weekend, Aaron, I think Kilkenny will beat Derry. The performance from Muckalee in the LGFA Championship in club level has been very, very encouraging for Kilkenny. And quite frankly, I think in Division 4, the most realistic win they can get is against Derry. I know they're away from home in this one, but it is a massive opportunity for Kilkenny LGFA to prolong the story in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. Like, and especially like with the first game in the league as well. Do you know, like when I suppose like when the likes of Derry and maybe other teams maybe aren't at their absolute best, and you know, especially at the start of the league, you do feel like that's when you can kind of get upsets and shocks and everything else. And as you said, yeah, like with the rise of Kilkenny and Muckalee in recent seasons, like they definitely do have a massive chance. And you know, like especially as well, like in previous seasons when they've been on the receiving end of big losses and confidence is low and all that kind of stuff, you know, like they'll be coming into this game with confidence and everything else, given the year that's been. So you'd expect them to start strong, and the fixture list has been kind to them as well, probably in playing Derry in the opening game. So yeah, it is a massive chance for them to win.
Yeah, it is a massive chance for Kilkenny, and obviously it should be an interesting weekend in the little LGFA league. Before we go, we'll talk about the Sigerson Cup, the Fitzgibbon. There is games ongoing. Check Scorpio or any sites there to check the latest scores, and there will be roundups later on tonight on those competitions in the hurling side. But the football side, the round 2 fixtures were all complete this week, and we'll go through, first of all, we'll go through round 2A and then round 2B. So the round 2A with the winners round, the winners of these ties progressed straight through to the quarterfinals. The losers had to go to round 3 to face the round 2B winners, if anybody isn't lost at this stage now. But this is the structure for the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship this year in Inter-County, so you probably should be getting used to it by now. Look at the round 2A results. UCD beat Maynooth on Tuesday night, 3-16 to 2-14. Goals from Mayo duo Sam Canlon and Darragh Riley, as well as Dublin youngster Joe Quigley, who got 1-3 from play, were big scores from a UCD point of view. Another Mayo man in Niall Hurley hit 6 points as well. For Maynooth, Owen Cully hit 1-3, and Aaron Brown from Kildare hit 5 points as well. Look at the other round 2A games. TU Dublin beat MTU Kerry by 321 to 210, and that's another quarter-final appearance for TU Dublin. 1-2 each from play from Jordan Morris and Meath, Wicklow's Conor Fee, and Kildare's Sean Hannafin were big scores for TU Dublin. Also, Cavan forward Sean McAvoy got 4 points, and Westmeath man Danny McCartan got 5 points as well. A brilliant win there from TU Dublin point of view. On Wednesday evening, UCC beat Queen's University 119 to 214 in a fantastic game of football. I did watch this game, and there is stats available in this game as well. Micheál McSweeney of Nottingham Green Cork hit 5 points, including great 2-pointers in this game, 2 of them. Kieran Santrick of 1-1 in this. Conor Daly got 3 points. A brilliant 2-pointer to nearly win us from Rory Murphy from Kerry to win this game as well. Noah Grimes, I mentioned for him for Queen's University. He got 1-4 from play, the Tyrone man. But I suppose, and I'll go to you, Liam, on the round 2A games, the results of the week, in many ways, there is stats available in this game as well. UL 118, DCU 12 points. The defending champions in a bit of bother. They're going to round 3 now, but UL were fantastic in this game, and they were very good in the round 1 game against MTU Cork as well. DCU, after beating Ulster University as comfortably as they did, this might be a bit of a bump in the road for them, but Cian McHale of Mayo got 5 points. Conan Dawson got 5 points as well. Another Mayo man, and Frank Irwin, really impressed with this one. And Brian McNamara of Clare got a fantastic goal in this one. Were you shocked by this result, Liam, in UL winning this game?
Not really, to be honest. Now, that could be biased considering I was in UL for 4 years, but I mean, you saw yourself, Matthew, that UL have been a coming team for the last number of years. I mean, I know I still don't know how they didn't win a Sigerson when David Clifford was there, to be honest with you, and especially in what was my first year. I think it might have been your second year when they lost, was it to, who was it? Was it NUIG they lost to in the final the first year? And ironically, they bet them then that weekend in the hurling, so it was kind of one each in that perspective. But yeah, no, I'm not surprised at all because UL have a lot of really good players. Cian McHale, and for me, Frank Irwin is a player I really, really enjoy watching, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how he gets on and develops. this season. I think he could be one of Mayo's strongest players over the next couple of years if the cards are played right. But like you mentioned there, Brian McNamara is a very good player. And just overall, I think the whole setup with UL is really, really impressive. You know, they have a really good management team as well. I believe is the former Tip manager managing them this year. Yeah, like he's an excellent coach. He's an excellent man manager as well. Very lovable character, or likable character, I should say, as well. So yeah, I think he's getting the best out of this UL team. It's a very, very strong looking team on paper. Both their Fitzgibbon and their Sigerson teams are both very strong on paper. But yeah, look, I'm not surprised at all. Look, DCU, it's probably a surprise to a degree that they've kind of lost the game in this kind of fashion. UL were very, very dominant on them. I mean, you still had Shannon Baker scoring 5 points. Lorcan O'Dell didn't score in this game, which was kind of strange, to be honest with you. I'd expect him to probably take a game like this by the scruff of the neck, but you know, maybe it's just one of those nights for him. I don't know, but yeah, no, look, I'm not surprised in the slightest. UL have been a coming team over the last couple of years, and they've been banging on that door to win the Sigerson Cup. So I think if there was a year now to potentially maybe go and do it, probably wouldn't have been this year. I thought it would have been maybe a couple of years ago to do it, but it's kind of strange. We see it all the time in sports. You know, Chelsea won a Champions League in 2012 when they probably had their worst squad under the Abramovich era up until that point. Do you know what I mean? Sport's a funny game. So if UL were to ever win a Sigerson Cup, it might have to be this year against potentially all the odds in the world.
Exactly. So a really good win for UL, and we'll discuss their prospects of the quarterfinal in just a bit. But looking at the round 2B results, Dundalk IT got over the line against T West Midlands 316 to 110. This was a significant result because T West Midlands are now relegated to the Trench Cup for 2027, while Dundalk IT go to the next round. It's a fantastic win for all involved there. Star men include Stephen Mooney of Monaghan, Craig Hanlon of Louth, Cian Mulligan, the goalkeeper. Monaghan actually scored a goal from a 45 in this one. I don't know what exactly happened, but it was a fantastic goal. It read like anyway. And Aaron O'Neill is actually of Armagh, Crossbaglen Rangers. He's actually a brother of Rian and Oisin O'Neill. So a very good player in the ranks for DKIT there. The other results were on Wednesday evening in round 2B. ATU Galway got their first Sigerson Cup win in 8 years. They beat St. Mary's 120 to 12 points. Paul Kelly of Galway got 1-6 in this one. Conor Reid of Mayo got 4 points as well. But a Declan Loy red card for Mary's was crucial in deciding this game too. Ulster University, they won the game against MTU Cork, but very narrowly, I would argue. MTU Cork were ahead in this game at half-time. It was 116 to 111 in this one. Charlie Diamond of Derry hit 5 points. For man-to-man, actually, Cian O'Brien was the main player with 1-2. Still no sign of the likes of Owen McAlone or any of these fantastic players. Rory Canavan, who's obviously picked up an injury in pre-season for Tyrone. If they're playing, I think Ulster University are a much better team. But anyway, and University of Galway got over the line against ATU Sligo 127 to 415. Cillian O'Curreen of Galway, Mark McInerney of Clare, and Owen Colleran of Roscommon were particularly impressive in the full forward line for University of Galway in this one. So the quarterfinalists are UL, TU Dublin, UCD, and UCC. And I'm going to get up the draw here in terms of the round 3 games. I think they're all happening next week. I think Jerome Quinn, who does absolutely brilliant work in terms of the college competitions, he put up the good draw there. So on Tuesday, January 20th, it's Maynooth University against Dundalk IT and University of Galway against MTU Kerry. And then on Wednesday, January 21st, you have Queen's against Ulster University. That is an Ulster derby there. That's very tasty. And ATU Galway against DCU. So look at those games, Aaron, in round 3, and look at the 4 quarterfinalists who automatically qualified. It's hotting up now, the Sigerson Cup.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And it is interesting with Ulster University. Like I backed them to win this competition on a video a couple of weeks ago. But it is interesting to see, like, yeah, as you said, a lot of those big players aren't featuring. Obviously Rory Canavan picked up an injury, but I don't think he featured in the first game anyway. That was obviously when he was playing with Tyrone. We haven't seen Owen McElhone. Rory McCullough, first game for him was this game as well. Kieran Daly as well. So like, there's been a lot of big players for Ulster University who haven't been involved, which has been a bit of a surprise. And yeah, like it was a big beating they took to DCU on the opening game, and yeah, like absolutely massive for them going up against like Queen's University, who do have some good players as well themselves. Like Roy McQuillan's a very good player. Noah Grimes. They also have Ronan Cassidy in there as well. So yeah, that's going to be a very, very interesting and tasty game. yeah, I think as you said, like I think the story of the competition so far definitely has to be UL. I know they won the league, I think, as well. So like they're coming in like very, very strong. Obviously, you lads would know a lot more about UL than me, but it does appear that they've, they have all the right structures in place. They have all the young players, the coaches, and everything else. And they have had a huge amount of success in hurling. So I think, yeah, like you'd probably have to say at this moment they are the early favourites.
Maybe so. And a quick trivia about David Power, actually. He actually managed Clonmel High School in the Curdy-Vree quarter-final against Clonakilty Community College as well. Clonmel won that game. So Tipperary School is through to the semi-finals as well. So, like, to coach 2 teams in 2 days and win both of them, like, to be fair, that's some achievement in fairness. And David Power is an absolutely excellent coach in fairness. But look at who's left in the Sigerson Cup. Just a bit of a one-word prediction on who's going to win it. Out of the 12 teams left, Liam, who do you think will win the Sigerson Cup, having seen what you've seen so far after 2 rounds?
I hope UL win it, obviously, having gone there before. I would kind of agree with Aaron. If Ulster University had the likes of O'Mac at home and Canavan playing at the moment, then I think they'd be a show-in to win it, to be honest with you. It's funny. I don't know why, but University of Galway, just with that full forward line and how well they played against ATU Sligo, okay, they're going to have to fix themselves defensively, but they could be a potential dark horse. Don't write them off by any stretch of the imagination. UCC, possibly as well. Do you know what? I'm going to be biased. I'm going to go UL to win it. I'm going to back UL to do the double. Why not? Look, I'm going to definitely be very wrong about this in a couple of weeks' time. But no, do you know what? Why not? Why not back the old college?
Are you going to go for TU Dublin, Aaron?
Yeah, I suppose if I had to back my college, if we're going for our own colleges as well, then I would have to go with TU Dublin. Yeah, look, I would go with Ulster University. Like, look, obviously I said them like a couple of weeks ago. It is just one of them where they're not, the reason why I set them was because of their main players and they're not playing. So it's kind of hard to back them. And I know people would say, oh, well, they might feature in the later rounds, but that's not guaranteed. Like they could have lost last night and then they, or 2 days ago. And then sure, there is no games after that. But to be fair to TU Dublin, like they are going very strong. Like they were semi-finalists last year. Won against MTU Kerry very convincingly as well in round 2A. As we were saying there, and Jordan Morris and Sean McAvoy and Sean Hannafin in round midfield as well. Like they are very, very strong. So do you know what? Let's back the lads.
I'm going to go for someone different, and I'm going to go for UCC to win it. I think, look, I think UL have been so close over a number of seasons, but every time they kind of they got to the final against University of Galway and UCC 2 years ago, I remember, and lost both of them where they were favourites. I don't know how they lost those finals with the likes of Clifford in and about that team. But I watched UCC last night. I was very impressed with some aspects of their play. Rory Murphy, I think, is a fantastic player around the middle of the park from Kerry. Micheál McSweeney from Cork, absolutely brilliant battering ram. Conor Daly's very consistent on the frees as well. I think they battled through that game against Queens last night and they got over the line. They have Billy Morgan, they have the likes of Luke Conley in the background team, interesting enough there from a UCC point of view. I think it might even be UCC or UL. It might be a Munster team that wins this competition. I'm going to back UCC slightly, though, having seen what I've seen so far and them beating ATU, Sligo and Queens so far in the competition. Commenting here from John Miller is saying he's late to arrive. What do you predict for the games on Sunday? Go back and listen to it, John. Obviously, it will be recorded and available on all our YouTube channels after the show as well. I know we're in, but there are pre-season competitions, so just to mention them in the games this weekend. So starting off, there is Shields and Plates finals all across the weekend as well. Check out the relevant sources for those games that are happening this weekend. So in the football, we'll start off with first. So the O'Byrne Cup final is on Friday evening. That's between Kildare and Westmeath. That's on at 7:30 on Friday evening. Moving into Saturday, you have the McGrath Cup final between Kerry and Cork. That's on Killarney at 1:30 p.m. on Saturday. You have the McKenna Cup final between Donegal and Monaghan. That's on at 5 p.m. on Saturday evening. And then on Sunday, you have the FBD League final in Connacht on as well between Galway and Mayo. That's on at 1 p.m. So that's the football pre-season competition finals. In the hurling and the Walsh Cup final, you have Dublin against Galway. That's on at 1:30 p.m. on Saturday. You have the Munster Hurling League final there as well between Waterford and Limerick. That's on at 3:15 on Saturday. That game's on in Mallow as well. So Kilkenny are playing in the Shield as well because they lost the coin toss. But Liam, look at those 6 finals there. Any games stand out for you? I know the league starts next week, and a lot of managers, including I've talked to John Cleary last week, and it's clear what inter-county managers are thinking. They're thinking about the league next week. It's kind of hard to G up the layers for these sorts of games. But any games that tickle your fancy there?
Yeah, I suppose the 2 Leinster finals with Dublin and Galway and Kildare and Westmeath in the football. Like you mentioned there, speaking to Mark McHugh earlier, the Westmeath manager, and even himself, look, he's delighted to have a competitive game of a degree this weekend, because he said, look, otherwise we'd have been getting a challenge match either way, but it's nice to have a small bit of competition ahead of this weekend. But like you mentioned there, if they lose this weekend, he's just looking to try and find 4, 5, 6 players that can build the Westmeath panel ahead of the season. But be nice for them and for himself as a new manager if he can pick up just a bit of silverware just for confidence more than anything this weekend. Obviously they're away from home in Connacht Park, so that'll be no easy feat by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that'll be a very tight game, to be honest. You could see it going either way, to be honest with you. Both are very, very strong teams. And in the hurling, look, I could see Galway beating Dublin in the Walsh Cup. They seem to do very well in the Walsh Cup over the last number of years. But then when it comes down to the championship, weirdly, I could just see Dublin beating Galway again. I don't know what it is. I'm sure Aaron, you'd take that 100% if it was offered to you right now. But yeah, look, I'm going to go for Galway to win last weekend. They did play some nice hurling when I saw them in the flesh last weekend, and they do have some good players in amongst their ranks that wouldn't be a lot of like big standout players or whatever. Obviously, they still have a lot of the Loughrea boys to come back as well, and the likes of Conor Whelan, who didn't play last weekend either. But yeah, I suppose those 2 games. And I think just even shout out, because I was chatting to my friend from Kilkenny yesterday, and sure, he said himself, massive game this weekend, the Shield final against Kildare. And sure, I said to him, Jesus, who would have ever thought Kilkenny being a second tier competition of any kind, to be honest with you. But yeah, look, it's great to have these games anyways. And sure, look, it's all building towards next weekend. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly. So, Aaron, any games that you're looking forward to? Monaghan and Donegal in the McKenna Cup final, a competition which Ulster sides really take seriously. That looks a good game, in fairness.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Like, and we've saw, I haven't kept too close of an eye on the McKenna Cup this year, but we know how strong, teams usually go. And to be fair to Jim McGuinness and Donegal, I remember 2 years ago, they were hammer and tongs at that competition. So be similar enough again. And look, it'd be great for Monaghan just to get one up on Donegal, maybe kind of going into the league and everything else, and that will give them great confidence. To be fair, going into the league, but yeah, look, obviously from a Dublin perspective, the Galway game in the Walsh Cup final obviously does very much stand out. Like, Dublin have had some great performers so far. Like, Davy Keogh's back on the side; he's been very impressive through pre-season. Tom Brennan's been very good as well. So we'll be interested to see how strong they go. Like against Westmeath, you did have the likes of Cian O'Sullivan in the side, to be fair, amongst a few others. So we'll be interested to see how strong they do go, especially with the fact that we do obviously have Clare in a week's time.
Yeah, exactly. So, and there will be a big preview in the National League next week on the Cúilín media site as well. There's a lot of videos going up next week, but that's for next week. For this week, thanks for all for viewing the preview to the All-Ireland Club Football final, football and hurling finals this weekend. There's plenty of other action as well this weekend. Next week, Inter-County will begin, but first of all, on Sunday evening, 8 o'clock, there will be a review show for the club football finals and the relevant pre-season competitions and the LGFA League games in Division 4 as well. So from Liam, from Aaron, and from myself, enjoy the league finals at the weekend. Thanks for tuning in, and see you on Sunday at 8 o'clock.
Follow your instinct, baby. Follow your instinct.